Welcome to this webinar sponsored by the BYU Management Society. I'm Rixa Oman, Executive Director of the Management Society. I'll be your moderator for today's event. We're so glad that you can join us. We're very pleased to have Cydni Tetro present on Women in Tech. Unfortunately, Sarah Jones, who is a co-founder with Cydni of the Women Tech Council, is unable to join us today. Just a few housekeeping items before we start. The audio portion of the presentation can be heard through the speakers on your computer, or you may prefer to call in, and instructions are on the screen panel to the right of your screen. During the presentation, all the participants will be muted. In other words, you can hear us, but we cannot hear you, and that's in order to deliver a clear presentation to everyone. You could ask questions on your control panel, and we'll try to get to them during the presentation. Many of you asked questions on the survey as you registered, and we've reviewed these questions and will respond to a number of them during the presentation. In addition, there will be a survey sent out after the webinar in which you could ask further questions if you want. Although we can't address everyone individually, this is helping us to direct the presentation today. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know about one new feature our Women in Business Network is promoting. Today we're introducing our BYUMS Women's Network blog. The address is byuwomeninbusiness.blogspot.com. The purpose of this is to connect women from all stages of their careers to discuss personal, education, and career development, keep discussions in the context of faith, promote moral and ethical leadership, and continue the conversations that we start during these webinars. We encourage thoughtful and kind discussion, and we hope that you gain new insights by reading this and contributing to it so that we can continue our discussions. Now let me introduce our speaker today. Cydni Tetro is a leading technology executive in production validation, go-to-market strategies, product development, marketing, and technology. She was CEO and founder of venture-backed 3D+Me, a 3D printing personalization software platform that she recently sold. Prior to that, she spent 4 years at Disney in Imagineering, building products and businesses from technology research and launching those products into theme parks, ESPN, ABC, and Interactive. Prior to Disney, she was CEO, COO, and CMO at several successful technology companies. She's faculty for the Goldman Sachs 10K Small Business Program. She's chairman and president of the Women Tech Council, a nonprofit with more than 10,000 members in its community. She's built hundreds of technology products using the world's largest brands, retailers, and companies. These include Disney, Microsoft, Proofpoint, Ancestry, Marvel, Star Wars. The list goes on. Cydni holds a master's degree in business administration and a bachelor's in computer science from Brigham Young. We're so happy to have her today and hear of her story with Women in Tech. We hope you enjoy it as much as we think you will. And Cydni, here you go.
Great, thank you. And I'm super happy to be on today and just share a little bit about the story of the Women Tech Council and a little bit about how that intersects even in my own personal story and the story of our founders as we were creating the organization. And then as I was reading some of the questions that people had asked prior, I think there were a lot of really great questions about what it means to be a woman in technology and the opportunities that exist, and even exist as you're considering maybe different direction changes in your career. So I'm hoping to touch on a little bit of that as I weave the story together. So let me just back up a little bit, and as Rick said, told you about me, I think one of the things I also just wanted to highlight that is an interesting thing about the journey we've been on in the Women Tech Council is that all of the women who are founders of the organization come out of working in technology. And because of that, you have this really great visibility into what it means to work in technology and what the potential opportunities are. And so, as mentioned, I did my undergrad in computer science, and in that program, I was one of 3 women. And it never really actually crossed my mind that I was one of 3 women in the program. I happened to do my minor in dance, where the opposite problem was true. But what was interesting is from very early on that although I was in a minority, I never thought about it as being in a minority. And I think that has kind of become an underlying theme for how we've even evolved the organization. When I had an opportunity, and I'll talk a little bit about this later, but for those of you who asked about what is it, how do you inspire young girls to go into pathways of STEM, I had an opportunity in high school to have a internship at a software company, be a software tester. And not only had I already kind of been interested in technology, but it really afforded me an opportunity to see all sorts of new things that were possible, and really started me on a career that when I went to college, I knew that if I had a technical degree, I'd have many opportunities. Even though I wasn't 100% committed to being a developer, I knew that understanding how technology would work would afford me opportunities. And so I don't look anything different than anyone else who, in the Women Tech Council board, or even in a large number of our community members who come through technical ranks where they're quite often the only woman at the table, and they've really had to build these careers out of that. And so a number of years ago, it's 10 years ago now since we actually started the Women Tech Council. And just as an aside, the images on the screen, those are from my 3D printing company. We built a company where you could become any of your favorite heroes: sports, gaming, entertainment, or even superheroes. We had a really cool opportunity to do that, which is an entirely other story for another day, but I'll highlight a few of those as we talk. So when we were thinking of starting the Women Tech Council, it was an interesting thing because I've never really thought about myself as being, a woman in tech. But I was sitting down with a couple of friends that I had who are working in other companies. And there were a few things that we had in common. And one of the things that we had in common is that we all really loved technology. We loved different aspects of it. Some people came out of e-commerce and web, some came out of physical product and hardware, and others in software, and others in marketing, and others in some of the other services that are part of the technology ecosystem. Sarah at the time, she was a patent attorney who had come out of a double E degree. And so we all came out, but one of the things that was true is that we really loved what we were doing. We loved what technology afforded us. So we saw this interesting opportunity to say, is there a community that should or could exist behind that? And at the same time, we had this idea or this concept, and this is an interesting reflection even on your own careers. Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, wrote a book called The Startup of You. The Startup of You is this idea that over the course of time, you own your career and that your job doesn't define your career. The job that you're in today really changes. It said today that the average person will have 7 jobs by the time they're 40. And a significant number of those will be actually different careers, so that you'll be moving and reinventing yourself. And so we were sitting down and we were talking, and we looked at this and we're like, we're passionate about technology. We think there's an opportunity to build a community for which we can really help women elevate and their talents be leveraged. And then at the same time, we were also thinking about this idea of how do you build a career where you create the impact and you help other people build opportunity. It kind of comes out of this Startup of You idea. And so we decided to go after building an organization that we thought we could do this. Now, a couple of things you should note about how we kind of think about the world. One of those is we really think like agile software developers, even when we were building the organization, which is kind of interesting. And by that, what I mean by that is we weren't exactly sure if what we were going to do could have the impact that we wanted. And so we started on a journey of doing a lot of validation and figuring out what we needed to create in order for people to really support it. So before we had this idea, literally 4 of us at lunch one day, we said, let's try it. So we said, well, let's go test it. And so we went down a path of, we reached out to the venture community, CEOs, leaders of state government, education, and men and women, CEOs and women inside of companies, and said, we think we're thinking of creating this organization, and if we do that, what does it need to do for you to support it? And across the board, everyone told us that if we focused on the economic impact of women, that would be the charter that they would support. And so from that moment on, that really became our lens by which we evaluated the impact the organization could create. How do we focus on the economic impact of women in technology? And the methodology that we used is always been this agile. Sometimes we have great ideas and sometimes we don't. But we always follow the philosophy of test and optimize in order to make us better faster. One of the interesting things about the Women Tech Council is that all the women who helped create it have full-time jobs working in technology. And so we're constantly thinking about the needs that we have as individuals trying to build careers, and at the same time how a community can help elevate and amplify those issues that are in front of them. So we started this path literally of testing and optimizing all of the ideas that we had. We held an advisory board meeting. We proposed what we were going to do to about 60 leaders, including about 90% of them were women in the room. And they said, we're in. And we said, okay, we got a bunch of their feedback, and we came back in 6 months, and we formally launched the organization. And even though we created the organization 10 years ago, we've stayed very true to our roots, and we've stayed very true to this customer experience methodology that is really what happens in engineering today. But even in our own organization, where we really try to figure out the right things, understand their impact, and then constantly iterate on those in order to build an organization that people want to participate in and that we can really build value on. And it really comes a lot for me personally from, my mindset has always been around that because of the product development side. But what we found is that in applying those types of practices is that you can build something with sustainable value that meets the needs of thousands of people. So I wanted to share with you a few things that the organization has done, and then I wanted to share with you what we've actually learned and some of the key lessons that we've learned along the way. So as an organization, as we decided to focus on the economic impact of women in technology, it came out of 4 pillars. And the organization has been constantly focused on opportunity, networking, mentoring, and visibility for women in all aspects of technology. So whether they're in a technology company or working in a technology role in another company, we integrate and support those women. But one of the other things that makes the organization unique is that we also recognize the success of our careers is heavily dependent on other people. And so what we did is we include men in our community. About 30 to 40% of our advisory board are men, and they are always invited into and participate with us in activities. We even specifically target them as an audience so that we can include them in. And we've found that to be a really vital key to success. That what we didn't want to create was a women's program, but we wanted to create a program that's really focused on leveraging and valuing all the talent that diverse teams bring and then driving the impact of that. It's been a really great charter, one that's really stood the test of time and has allowed us to grow and do some really important things that we believe have led to the impact we've been able to create. One of the core things that we believe in as an organization is that it is a partner-driven experience, that everything that we are doing is about how do we take all of the communities around us and bring them together and create a platform that adds value. And this industry-led comes, I think, because all of the founders and organization work in technology. And secondly, it gives us this priority of saying, what does the community need in order to achieve its goals and in order for us, and we let the community themselves drive the priorities every year as we hear feedback from them and as we evolve. And that's been one of the foundational principles from the day. So we created a bunch of really cool programs over the course of the last decade. This year will be our 10th annual Women Tech Awards. And this platform was created in our visibility charter, where we wanted to provide women who have been working in amazing technology roles but don't necessarily have the same visibility as women in all sorts of other roles. It's really easy to recognize women who are great at business and the intersection of technology, especially as they rise to the top. But there are some fabulous women who sit in all sorts of ranks of companies that we also wanted to have the opportunity to recognize. So when we started this about 10 years ago, we sent out nominations, and we too were skeptical about how it would grow in future years. And what we found is that every year we get 70 to 80 new women who apply, who get nominated for the awards, and we have the opportunity and a platform to recognize them. And over the course of the last 10 years, we've recognized about 162 women. And we try really hard to recognize women at all stages of their careers. Women who have been in their career for a while, rising stars who are just coming in, and then a student pathway award. We've found, and I think this is true across many sectors of industries, but that if we can recognize young women when they're between their second and third year of college, and those are those really hard years when, even when I was in computer science, I debated leaving at that third year. But we found that if you recognize those young women there, that you can help them stay in their path, and particularly in STEM. This has become a place where we have about 150 high school students who come every year, and they get the opportunity to be inspired by women who have forged strong paths and who have done many things, including contributions to community, to their personal lives, and to their professional lives. And it's a really powerful thing to do. We did cool things around this program, like the statue you see them holding, we had custom made, because we wanted those women to, we wanted to recognize them in a different way. Then over the course of time, you actually see President Matt Holland, he's the president of UVU in that photo. We created an impact award so we could recognize organizations or people who are doing really great things to recognize the talents of women and provide opportunities as we see those numbers change in the course of women. As a couple of interesting stats, in case you're interested, women represent more than 50% of people in the workforce today. That's true out of the state of Utah and in the state of Utah. It's also true that women represent nationally about 28% in technology, and in the state of Utah, 23%. And so we're always looking for ways to make sure that's true. And then the other interesting stat that we care a lot about is that in early entry fields, women represent 50%, even in technology, a more significant in management. But as we go to the senior ranks in the Fortune 500, only about 4% of all women in senior rank, all people in senior ranks are women. So we still have a fair amount of work to do to make sure that those talents are still valued as they move, but a lot of great things are happening, and it really starts with these conversations of recognition across everyone who's working in the workforce. So programs like the Women Tech Awards allowed us to launch a program with the Leonardo, which is a museum, and create a permanent exhibit called Women Innovators that recognizes 162 women, and they get their videos and tell their life stories, and we demonstrate and we showcase their physical products that they've created, all really providing us this opportunity to talk about the cool things that women are doing, and have lots of people, including grade school students, be inspired by them as they come through those opportunities. And as an organization, we do other things because we recognize the responsibility we have to give back, which I think is true for everyone, is that we have an opportunity to make sure that we're doing things that provide value to other people. So we created about 4 years ago a program called SheTok, and SheTok has become the largest industry-led STEM program, which really means we care about how do you get 9th to 12th grade girls interested in technology and into paths. And we learned a couple of things. One, you've got to give them an opportunity to get their hands on technology because it changes when they see their creativity fused with innovation. Second, you have to put them in front of amazing mentors. They need to see all the women and all the possibilities that might exist for them and translate that into their vision of who they could become. And third, they need to recognize that technology is part of every industry they will ever do. This event started 3 years ago in our test and optimize model. We started the program in partnership with UVU, and we had 300 girls attend the first year. And then the next year we had 650, and the next year over 1,000, and this year there's almost 2,000 girls who have gone through the SheTok days. And it's expanded past the state of Utah into other places like Colorado and Idaho and other reaches. And what we've learned is that by bringing industry and letting this become an industry-led event, that we're inspiring those girls to go and pursue STEM degrees. They get to do cool things. There's a chemistry demo on polymers. that makes something like instant snow. But the instant snow is the same thing that's used in movie making and the same thing used in other fast absorbing polymer areas. What we learn is when we give those tools to the girls, it's the first time they've thought about them. My favorite quotes from the girls are the ones where they say, it's the first time I realized I could be something, that I could be something else other than what a nurse or a teacher. We have a number of rural girls who come through. And I love the opportunity for them to do that and for their schools to embrace the opportunity. This is a place where this year 350 members of our industry community came and worked hands-on with those girls. And it works because those girls come in. And so now we're starting to track them as they get into universities and as they go through university and graduate. And the program continues to expand. And those are cool things where we get to create impact in general. Over the course of the organization, we've also created things like inclusion frameworks. We have a very large population of over 10,000. And so we've asked them, what are those women in technology, what are the things that are required, or how do you look at moving into other jobs or for promotions? So we rolled out an entire inclusion framework to the CEOs of the companies, and they have started embracing these conversations around, are we doing the right types of things to make sure that we have that diverse talent and we can optimize it and we can retain it. And that's been a really cool thing to see evolve over the last couple of years. A couple of weeks ago, we held a talent summit, and we actually had 8 technology companies stand on stage and pitch why women should work for their companies. And you learn really great things that the technology community is leading out on. Companies like Adobe talk about the fact that they offer 6-month full paid maternity leave and a month paid paternity leave. You're seeing our technology companies in droves move to policies like take your time off when you need it. They're not starting to no longer track time off. And so they're creating these flexible cultures where we still hold everyone highly accountable for delivery, but that do so in a way that embraces the flexibility that people need and really provides promotion and compensation and to do that. And I would say they're being driven to do that because talent is scarce, and diverse teams, all the data tells us they outperform. And so it kind of comes full circle back to where we started with this focus on the economic impact of women in technology. And as we've focused on that as an organization, you start to see that the programs line up with that, and the industry is also driving to that. So as I highlighted a couple of these programs, I really just wanted to point out that we are, as an organization, we've really focused on that. One of the things we've become known for is our ability to execute programs. We try to focus not on creating events, but creating on the sustainable programs that can create an impact and that make a difference in the lives of the people that are around us. And out of all of these efforts, there were a number of key learnings that we had that I thought might be interesting to share in the context of this conversation. As an organization, this is a quick snapshot of all the things we've been able to do, from education to the boardroom. And the types of, we map them to our 4 core visibility, opportunity, networking, and mentoring pillars, and make sure that the things we're doing meet our audience's needs as an organization, which is a significant task considering most of us are volunteers and we have a small paid staff that helps us accomplish this. But I really think it happens because we have this industry focus, and so those resources help us drive to delivery. So let me just share with you for a few minutes what we learned on this journey, because I think they're applicable to our own individual career development and what we've learned as an organization. This build economic value that I talked a little bit about, that really is at the core of what has made us successful. The idea that what we were building was really focused on the thing that matters in the industry. Of course, good things will come out of that. But one of the things that we know is that as you think about sponsorship dollars, as you think about how you build community around you, that you want your goal to be the outcome of all of your effort to be how you're helping everyone else build those measures of success. And it really drives to economic value. It led us to make decisions like, in the very beginning, we decided that we would operate the organization 100% by sponsorship dollars and not by asking women for membership fees. And the reason that we did that is because in the technology world, I might be the only woman in my company, or the only woman in my engineering department. And we didn't want them to have to make a trade-off between coming to an event or not because they couldn't get budget for a membership. So we made a decision early on that was right in line with this, that said, we want to be inclusive. We want everyone to be able to come and support, and we will find other ways to fund the organization. And that decision and that strategic emphasis has really allowed us to drive that to execution and then ultimately led to success. That's how the organization still operates today. We work by going after annual sponsorship and various other sponsorship programs to fund the organization. And we run it a little bit like a business. We run it so we can make sure we think about positive P&Ls and that we're really meeting our business objectives. But for me, one of our lessons learned is build economic value. It's the same lesson I learned in building my startup, right? It's really around real people fund and help pay for the value you're creating. And if they won't, then you find yourself having to pivot because you really need that in order to achieve success. It's just a core principle of building anything. People pay for value. And so how do we make sure we're delivering value? And as an organization in the early days, it was harder. We didn't have a track record. But today, as you move forward, you find that people are increasingly willing to sponsor you at better levels as you continue to add really impactful value that makes a difference. And I think this is a key builder for any of us building our own companies or organizations. One of the other things we have as an organization is this idea that I call the mentorship mindset. That as a community at large, we and all of our members care passionately about the ability to help other people. And we get asked this question all the time, so we have really formally tried to create paths. It's hard to create formal mentorship paths, but it is easy to create opportunities for people to meet each other, to see role models, to create intersections where they can go. And what I learned from our advisory board every time we come together is that this is a place they care, especially women as they develop more and more in their careers. The women that I associate with always think about the fact of how do I help those other people around me? How do I provide them feedback? How do I give them tools in order to help them excel in their career? And this mindset has become core to what we've built, that everyone around us, we need to have an opportunity to help. If we can help them become more successful, then we want to be able to do that. We've watched some stats from the Women Tech Awards over the years, and it's fascinating to see how quickly the networks of those women expand and the opportunities they have to meet new people and gain new opportunities because of just the visibility that it provides them. And then they get the opportunity to give back. When we see high school students and college students sit with those women, every year we get emails and people come up and say, it's the first time I even knew that that was an opportunity before me, or that I could figure out how to navigate my path to get to there. And so we've really embraced this idea of create a mentorship mindset and let that drive for our strategy for how do you create that. And I think it's an important learning for even ourselves in our own personal lives. How do we really help those people around us? One of my own personal barometers as I work with people and teams is, as I leave those people or teams, or as we move on, will they work with me again? Was I good enough, a good enough partner and a collaborator and or a leader for them, that the next time we have an opportunity to work together, they would jump at the chance? And I think that that's part of something that I care to develop, and I find that our community cares to develop that also. We also learned that it really has to be relationship centered. And this crosses not just building, nonprofit organization, but really everything we do in our lives. This is a picture from my 3D printing startup that I sold about just over a year and a half ago. Let me just tell you a quick story here. So we had a really crazy opportunity to work with the biggest brands and some of the biggest companies in the country when we were launching this. So I had done a partnership with Marvel and Star Wars and Hasbro, and we were working on a partnership with Walmart. And it was the relationships that we created that gave us the opportunity. I'm showing you the Iron Man here, but when we launched the company, I also really wanted the sports teams. I wanted Major League Baseball and the NFL and Major League Soccer. And I didn't come out of sports backgrounds. I had once done a sports startup, so I had some friends in that space, but that was not my deep relationship based. But one of the guys I had done that startup with, he knew everyone in sports. He worked in that industry. And I called him up and I said, hey, will you help provide me introductions into the NFL and Major League Baseball and Major League Soccer? And without even hesitation, he said yes. And as I've reflected back on that many times, I really think it's because the approach from the beginning, even years before we would work together, had been focused on building relationships that had value and that could last past that moment of interaction. And those relationships themselves led to many other opportunities. It led us to closing Major League Baseball and the NFL and going to the World Series and the Super Bowl. And in the case of Marvel and Hasbro, that relationship led to many other opportunities. We jointly launched in 60 days to Walmart because we created these relationships where both parties saw value. And I think that's a really important thing, that you close business and you create opportunity by being focused on relationships and how you can create value on both sides of that in order to get the return. And that's what happened for me in our company in 3D+Me. Those relationships continue to grant us more and more opportunities in order to do other things. I have seen that happen in the Women Tech Council, that as we pull in and build relationships with parties, we come up and we invent new things to work on together, new ways to create impact. But it's because we have a strong sensitivity to relationships. Sarah, she sometimes gives me a hard time about a story a long time ago where she said, the one thing you know about Sid is that if there's ever an issue with anything, that her answer will be, you should just go to lunch. And as she's said that to me a few times over the last year, I've thought deeply about it, because that is what I say. I say, if you need to solve problems, if you're frustrated with someone, if something's not working out, the best approach is to go to lunch. And the go to lunch strategy is because it is relationship centered. You need to be able to relate to people, to understand what's going on in order to build a platform of value. And we've learned that time and time in the organization. We consciously go through all of the partners over the course of the year and make sure we're doing things that they believe are valuable. And we check in with them and we ask them and we see what they want, difference they want to make, and so that we meet the needs that they have while still building something that can have impact. And this relationship-centered thing has been one of the key values. We find that people who don't understand relationships have a hard time being able to build sustainability and programs past that, because relationships are at the core of everything, and even for me personally, every career opportunity that I've had. And we also think about one of the 4 things that we've learned is what I'll call build sustainable value. We believe that it's very important, and we've learned along the way, that what you should really be about is creating sustainable programs that create consistent value. SheTok for us is one of those great examples. This year you stood in the big gym, and there's 1,200 high school girls at one of our events, and those girls are all being inspired, and we've created something that has value past the moment. Because it has value past the moment, it gives you an opportunity to reach back to them, to create more touch points, to create things that year over year draws companies, draws girls, creates pathways, creates internships into those. Last year when we decided we wanted to expand the program and at least double it, if not triple it, we received a grant to help us do that. And we went as part of that grant and asked our industry partners, companies like Dell EMC and a number of those other ones on those Pluralsight, Jomo, if they would offer internships to high school girls as part of that. And we had 13 companies step up and offer over 250 internships to high school girls. And they didn't do that just because they did it, because they recognized this program created sustainable value and opportunities that could really mean something for those girls. Now I think about my own individual career, the places I decide to spend my time, an organization like the Women Tech Council. The opportunity to build sustainable value is really what we're about. I find personally that when I'm in times of career transition, which I find myself sometimes right now, that this is one of those topics that weighs on me. What is the thing that I should do where I create value that can leverage my talents and that can create the return that makes sense? And I think the same types of questions are always asked about an organization that you create or where you're headed. what is the thing that I can spend my time where I create sustainable value and help contribute to the success and impact of things that other people care about. And we've learned that by focusing on sustainable value, we create programs that survive year over year and that grow year over year, and that we can activate communities as we have new ideas. This last year, we decided to launch a program called the Hour of Code and provide students from K through 12 a coding module. So our partner Dell EMC jumped on board and they helped us create it. But the coolest part about it was that in the matter of the first 24 hours, we had 3,500 students who went through and actually did the program. And we got to do some fun recognition from them and get recognized by the White House. But all of that happened because we had created a platform with sustainable value, and that people recognize that if you participate with it, that you can be involved and get return. And so I challenge all of us to make sure that as we're building those things out in our lives, that we're creating sustainable value. And then one of the other things that kind of underlies all of that I think you can hear is interwoven between everything is this idea of being able to focus on impact. Really, I want my time and effort to result in creating positive impact in such a way that it helps other people on their journeys. And that tied to that, when you tie that back to those economic drivers, we focus on impact. We measure impact of our events. How many people participated? What was their engagement? What did they do next? What are the number of new connections that they made because they were here and part of the conversation? And I think when you focus on impact, you create this network effect of helping other people and other people helping other people and getting those, getting the results that you want from that. And so over the course of us building, the Women Tech Council, we've learned those things. We've learned a lot of those things. And as I reflect on, my journey in technology and some of those learnings, why do I spend my time on this, or why does anyone spend their time? I think it's because of those things. The opportunity to create impact, to help the world around you, to provide opportunities for other people. For me individually, one of the interesting things that has happened that I didn't anticipate going in is an opportunity to create a network of men and women that I most likely never would have had my life's path intersect with. I worked for technology companies. I was a chief marketing officer at a company at the time that we started this. And I was really the only woman in the company. And when we created this, I now know thousands of women who are doing great things in their careers. They are providing great opportunities for people around them. And they help me build my network, provide advice for my career, provide mentorship for me, and help me figure out that path that I think we all struggle with. For women in technology, we're the minority. That's not changing anytime soon without concerted efforts from a lot of people. In graduation rates, we still have fewer women graduating today in the sciences than we did when I graduated a long time ago. And so we have a great need for people to work together to make the world better so that all those great ideas that people have, they can have opportunities in technology. One of the things that I will just mention that I love about technology is that technology affords so many different opportunities for women to balance everything that they're doing in their world. I have a family, and so I have to figure out how to balance that. Technology is one of those industries where in today's world, you can't take a conference call from home, or you can't take a conference call before you're going to step over to the soccer game. And you can be working on your computer from many different locations. So we're finding that the world is embracing that, and the need for the female perspective is highly integrated in. And so we're looking, for ways and opportunities. And just to bring in some of the questions I do see many opportunities for women, even if they're doing returnships, they're entering back into the workforce. At the Talent Innovation Summit, if you're interested, the video will be posted shortly on the womentechcouncil.org website. But a bunch of companies pitched why women should work for them. And Chatbooks, one of the Utah-based companies, they talked about the fact that they have an entire workforce that they call their mom force. And their mom force are all women who are balancing work and life, and most of them are working part-time, and they're working from home, and they're helping create an entire community around that company. So I think there's many opportunities. I think that's one of the great things about technology is that you have an opportunity to do so many different things and support so many different types of work styles. You know, if you're re-entering the workforce, I have a really good friend who about 10 years ago, she'd taken about 15 years off, and she decided to come back in. And I've watched her over the last 10 years build a really great career. And now she heads up a complete sales and marketing organization for a software company. And she came back in, and she came back up to speed. And there's many, many programs right now focused on helping women at all stages, whether they're just entering a career or they're looking to go back, really enter into the technology sector. And I really believe that you can do that if you're interested. And for me, technology has afforded me opportunities to work at companies like Disney and start my own company and work for big technology companies and build an interesting pathway that works for me and that works for my family and allows me to create the contributions and impact that I want in general. And as I kind of wrap up my conversation, this is one of the quotes that I firmly believe in, that it's not what we do once in a while that shapes our lives, but it's what we do constantly. And I think it's a constant mindset in order to really help people achieve where they're trying to go, create the impact that we all want, and build a career that allows us to balance our lives, our personal lives, our family, our religion, and ultimately our jobs. And when we find those intersections, and when we focus on the right things, I really believe we're inspired to create impact for the people around us, and even for ourselves and our families in ways that we might not have thought of before. So with that, I'd like to thank you for spending time with us today. I know we're wrapping up a few minutes early, and I think if there are any questions, we're happy to answer a few of those if anyone has any questions.
Cydni, this is Rixa. One of the questions that's come up that I noticed is because our audience is not just Utah based, but from all areas of the country, and they wondered if Women's Tech Council is only Utah based, or are there some parts of it that can be accessed by people who are not in Utah?
Yeah, that's a great question. When we created the organization, we actually did not ever want it to be only Utah focused, although we were obviously living here at the time. Our SheTok program has branched across the country. It's going to go through another massive expansion this year. And actually other chapters of Women Tech Council are also launching. But in addition to that, we're actually doing more work now than ever to make sure the programs and the content are available even more broadly. Obviously, some of the physical events are hard to replicate, but the content that we're doing and the programming that we're putting in place, we try to have a national reach. Our awards also tend to have people from all over the country. So we have a bunch of cool stuff happening in Silicon Valley and a bunch of other locations around the world, around the country right now that we're looking to do expansion. That's a great question.
Oh, that's great. So would they access your website then to find information about things maybe that they can access?
Yep, it's womentechcouncil.org. It's actually going through a massive update right now. As soon as the DNS information trickles through, it will actually be broader, and it actually will list all of the programs and events across the board. And there's lots of contact information. We actually have lots of boards too that help us where we have women from regions all over the country helping us build out various programs for those areas.
Oh, that's wonderful, because I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that are thinking, okay, I want to be involved. This is something I want to encourage my daughters, my nieces, my grandchildren to be involved in. In fact, that's what I found myself thinking too. Is one of the things I wondered is I love the SheTok idea of inspiring girls in high school, because I think that many times their focus or their vision is so narrow until they're exposed to things that help them to see there's so much more in the world that they could be doing, and opportunities that they could be so talented in and be able to really do a lot with. So that's exciting to see the numbers that you're getting and the impact in terms of internships. Yeah, I was really impressed with that. I've got some high school grandchildren that I'm going to talk to.
Yeah, you know, the SheTok program was really cool. We received a grant, and we used that grant money to create a repeatable platform that can go to many different locations. So we actually have Colorado has one that's coming up here in a few weeks. But it's already started to bridge out, because what we wanted to do, to your point, is create a platform that can reach, it's hard to create curriculum, all the tools, all the infrastructure, but we felt from that experience that we could create a platform that could be picked up and dropped into many locations so that it can have reach. We're working on a couple of national locations for the next year, but we also just created a platform that could expand to many areas for that exact reason. We find that those high school girls, we all know there's many issues all the way through K through 12, but those high school girls, something happens where they don't see themselves intersecting with technology. And the opportunity to introduce technology into the ways they think, show them what it means if they're interested in fashion, or even if they're interested in dance, or if they're interested in math or engineering, or whatever that side of that is. Those young women are growing up with technology at their fingertips, so it will be part of any job they pursue. We found if we can give them those ideas, we put 3D printing pens in their hands, we show them how to make robots, and all of a sudden they recognize and start to think about how technology could align with their passions. And that starts to tip them towards thinking about opportunities to minor or even major in STEM fields because of putting the power of creation in their hand. For me, that's the most inspiring part about it. One of the cool things we do at SheTok is the afternoon is actually what we call a tech challenge. The girls are getting some technology problem, and then we take them through the whole process of brainstorming, vetting ideas, coming up with a solution, designing a solution, and then they actually pitch. So they pitch to judges and teams win right there in the afternoon. So the girls get this broad experience of a little entrepreneurship, a little technology, engineering, and innovation, in addition to the hands-on tech. And the combination of those things, it inspires those girls, right? They want to win that competition, and they see their ideas come to life and how they actually have to pitch them in order to, win a prize with a pitch competition.
That's such a great way to really build their, like I said, grow their vision of what they're able to do by giving them those experiences. It's also very interesting to see that you mentioned that technology affords so many opportunities to women who are returning to the workforce or want to come back after a time away from the workforce, that this is really a field that they should look at, develop their talents in and move into, because I know some of our audience is also in that position.
Yep. There's a term out there called returnship. It's kind of been the term that's coined for that. I've taken time off of work and I'm looking to come back into the industry. In the technology world, we have a talent shortage. There are not enough people to fill the jobs that are available in technology. Technology also provides high-paying jobs, which is why they're in such demand to find that talent. So as women are looking to come back in, right, or they've taken time off for families, or whatever the reason is that they find themselves thinking about coming back, it does require a little bit of investment, I would say, in skills. If it wasn't something, that you've naturally come through. Couple of cool things have happened in the world today. If you find yourself slightly interested even in the coding side, and building web pages or even mobile applications, there's a ton of coding boot camps that have popped up. Love the coding boot camps because it's a way to go get some knowledge back, but without not going necessarily back to school. So you can go through and get some certifications and pipeline in. But we're also finding there's lots of companies similar to Chatbooks who are hiring part-time workforces of women to do various types of roles, and then they actually help those women move up. It was an HR technology company, and they started hiring. They hired almost all their workforce was part-time women, and what they decided to do is they started them in customer service, and then then most of those women moved up and could have promotions and move through the ranks and have other opportunities. And so you're really looking for those companies are doing that more and more. I would say more in technology than other industries, because technology has some flexibility about scheduling. But I think it's important that if you're looking at it, you might have to invest in some skills, whether that's going back for some basic classes around PowerPoint and Excel, some of those computer skills. If you want to go on a more accelerated path with more earning potential, then you go into some of those coding disciplines or product management disciplines, and you really have an opportunity to go do that. And there's a lot of available curriculum that is not going back to college, but that can provide you certifications and pathways to get into those jobs. And if you search on the term returnship, is kind of the term that this type of work is starting to fall underneath. And from the state level, in a lot of the states across the country, the state governments are actually putting money behind this to help their workforce be better prepared. So they're providing grants or programs that will help fund those efforts to provide those skills, especially in states that have very low unemployment rates. They have to do things in order to incent people to take more of those jobs.
Let's see, I'm just checking on some questions here, see if I see anything else that we haven't. Let's see, you talked on this briefly, but can you talk more about how women can communicate and work well with men in STEM, since there's a lot of men in STEM jobs? So, and I'm sure, you know, some people are intimidated by that, others are not. What was one thing that you had to be mindful of if working in technology companies dominated by men?
You know, I think I would say that I in my mind, I've never really had a sensitivity. I've really felt that I should always be, and everyone should always be, evaluated on their talents and on their contributions. You cannot climb on this call.
Well, that's wonderful.
And
well,
so, go ahead.
Oh, I mean, I'm just excited about the possibilities, and I'm sure our audience is. So if they'll remember some of these things, hopefully we could get your slides. But if they'll remember to ask some of their questions on the survey they'll get right after, or they all received emails from me, so they can send me those emails and we can pass the questions along if they're trying to locate some of these things that can help them. We'd be glad to help in any way we can. Any final words?
Oh, I appreciate the opportunity to do it. You know, someone who came through, you know, BYU, my undergrad and my graduate, just have a deep appreciation for all of the great, talented women out there and the opportunities that together we can build by recognizing people's talents and helping them really reach their full potential. And I think that's the great thing about, you know, women in business, that we can build the right communities and create lasting impact for not only ourselves today, but for generations to come. And I think if we have that mindset of making the world a better place, that we can do things that create value and that help everyone achieve the goals that they have. So thank you for letting me participate.
Wonderful. Cydni, thank you so much. You know, that's what we're trying to do with the Management Society and our Women's Network, is to create opportunities and open people's minds to other opportunities and things that they can do or be aware of, and start that discussion. So thank you so much. It's really been fun to listen to, and I took tons of notes. It's been a learning experience, and I'm very interested in this. Thank you for our audience for being on here. You'll be sent a short survey after, and we'd appreciate you filling that out or sending us questions. In addition, I will also send you the link to the recording so you can come back and listen to some of the information and take notes again. Also, I want to remind you about the blog. This would be a great topic to have a discussion on and post some of those resources. So I'll work to get some of the websites up and things like that up on our blog as well. Thank you again so much. We appreciate you being on it, and we hope you have a great day, and that we can all continue to work together to help each other move forward in areas that we're interested in, that we can make so much impact. Thank you, Cydni. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.